All right, we are going to move on to wide receivers now. We just gave you our running backs and quarterbacks. Now we got 5 boom, 5 bust wide receivers for you for the 2021 fantasy football season. First up, we got our boy Cam. Who is booming for you at the wide receiver?
I got Deebo Samuels. And
Deebo!
Everybody's going Ayuk right now. Everybody's really high on Ayuk, and I get it. I think that's possible, right? But as everybody's going Ayuk, I'm going Deebo, and I think you're going to get Deebo at a really good rate because people are so high on Ayuk that they're going to pass on him. He's going to drop, and he's going to drop in your drafts, and I think you're going to be able to get him for a great value. So Deebo.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was highly touted. Deebo was highly touted last year, right?
Yep.
So
the man runs great routes.
He does. He is coming off of a injury-riddled season, but I like Deebo, so yeah.
Yeah, another thing to watch out for sometimes when you have that rookie QB in your system, though, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes takes a little time to iron out. But, yes, Deebo is a great athletic player, so watch out for him. Jay Stevens, who else should we be watching out for?
I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney.
Mooney!
Yeah, he's the Bears number 2. He's the Bears number 2. Yeah, that's why I couldn't go with Montgomery, too. He's the Bears number 2 this year. He's lightning fast, man. He has a super high catch rate. It's just Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney, man. And, like, he's going to get volume. He's going to get receptions. We don't have anybody else that can catch the ball. I mean, we got Jimmy Graham. He's old. Yeah.
Jimmy Grandpa.
He's a number 2 receiver. For the Bears, and I think he has the potential to be very good. And he's being drafted very late as well, like maybe 10th to 12th round sort of thing. So
yeah, he's a good player to pick up late. Yeah, is a fly player that you can get really low that has high potential. That's a good boom. Frosty, who are you looking at this year?
Looking at Tyler Lockett. You know, with Seattle, I think he's going to have a monster year. DK obviously went off last year. He's going to start, getting a lot more attention from the top corners and safeties and such, and it's going to leave Lockett to grab those balls.
They pretty much flip-flop last year, right? Metcalf was balling out in the beginning, and then Lockett turned it on end of the year. Yeah. So that was very frustrating as an owner.
Lockett is so frustrating, man. Like, he would put up just absolute monsters, and then he would just go dud, to the point where it's like, I got to sit this dude. But you can't sit this dude because once you sit him, he's going to score 3 touchdowns and have 250 yards.
Yep.
Like, I agree. I think he's a great boom player.
That has always been why I haven't drafted him because he's just not consistent.
Yeah, and like
week in, week out, he's not consistent.
Yeah, I don't think I would want to own him again just for that reason alone. Not that he doesn't have the potential to be a monster, but he's so frustrating.
That's one of those frustrating situations, too, where you got 2 receivers that are almost equally as good. You don't know who's going to come out on top, right? Like a Thielen, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. Now these 2 guys. So it's kind of like those guys, when you have 2 really good guys and you have to coin flip, that can also be a negative, towards them.
We're doing booms or busts right now, and that is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, right? I mean, he could just be that guy.
The boom or bust wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
I also, though, think that Lockett is a great value this year. Jay Stevens and I co-owned him in our league together, and I kind of agree with you. He is frustrating at times. I'm still on him for at least one more year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Okay, my boom wide receiver of the season is going to be CeeDee Lamb for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, people are high on him, man.
Yep.
Gotta agree with that.
Texas boy. He's actually from right where I grew up. He's went to the high school that's like 10 minutes from my house. It's a new high school, but yeah, he's a Fort Bend County, Houston, Texas boy. And, I like to see him balling out, doing real well. I mean, he's an absolute athletic beast. He's another one of those Randy Moss type, Michael Irvin type, receivers. He gets action. He's good. No matter how much coverage you throw at him, the dude's going to get open. So it's his second year coming out. He stayed healthy all last year. There's no reason to believe with a healthy Dak, with a better Cowboys team, everything's lined up for him to do big.
Yeah. Sorry, but we'll get into it later, and I'm sure Cam will actually talk about it a bit later. But like, you can make, I'm excited to see the argument to be made on the other side, because I think there's a good argument to be made that he could he could be a bust as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's getting drafted pretty high up in the wide
Yeah,
receiver,
he
so
is.
people are expecting him to boom. Some people don't think he can do it. I think he's going to beat his projection, and he's going to finish as a top 10 receiver. So I think he's going to be booming.
Oof, man. I mean, if he finishes as a top 10 receiver, he's going to have a big old year.
Oh, yeah, he is. And he's going to. All right, Landon, who's on your list?
I got to go with CeeDee Lamb as well.
Yep.
He's entering his sophomore year. He's one of those mid-round wide receivers that everyone knows. Like if they've got a productive rookie year and they go the mid rounds in their sophomore year, they boom.
Dude, but he is shooting up. Like, he's going, like, third round now.
He's. I think the reason is like that I picked him is because this will be the last year that you'll be able to, like, if you like in an auction draft, we're in an auction draft, so you got to pay money for him. This might be the last year that you can get him for somewhat cheap.
It'll be.
Plus,
I'm interested to see what
we
he
know
does go
he's
for.
got Mike McCarthy as his head coach. We know that Mike McCarthy likes to throw the ball. Like,
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy's not great at using running backs. Dak is back. Dak is going to throw the ball down the field, and CeeDee Lamb is going to be there to catch him.
Well, I think if CeeDee Lamb comes throughout the season comes to be their number one wide receiver, like if he's the number one, Amari Cooper, we could tell that he's the guy, then he's going to have a monster year. But if there's,
I think that's how they're going to run him as the one, I think.
I think so too. But I think if there's any sort of question throughout the year, if it's Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, I think if that's even a question, then he's not going to have as good of a year as we think.
Over under 10 touchdowns for CeeDee Lamb.
Over.
Yeah, I'd take the over.
All right.
Yeah, he should have a few games where he gets 2, and then he's got to sprinkle in a handful
Yeah.
here and there.
10?
All right, so we got an under, and I like Jay Stevens. I'm excited to hear the poo-pooing
Yeah.
of CeeDee Lamb.
The argument against
We're
him.
going to hear more about CeeDee Lamb coming up in our next segment. We got 5 wide receiver bust for you. So while we're still on the topic of CeeDee Lamb, Cam's our first one up. This is his bust pick. So why don't you tell the people
Who is it, Cam?
why you're feeling that
Who
way?
is it?
CeeDee Lamb
No.
is going to be a bust this year, folks.
Oh.
I wouldn't get my fantasy advice from Landon. I'll start with that as being my first argument. But look, okay, CeeDee Lamb, great talent. I'm not arguing that. Dak is back. That's obviously huge. But look, there's still Amari Cooper. There's still Michael Gallup. Zeke is back and healthy. He's going to obviously be super involved. And I just don't see there being enough for everybody to get theirs. Maybe one of those guys totally falls off and CD can do it. Maybe the 3 of them all just lose a little bit, right? CD's going around now like wide receiver 11, getting up into the
it's
top 10
high,
now.
bro.
And I just, with that many other mouths to feed, I don't know. I just don't think he's going to do it. I mean, he's got a great talent, but there's just one ball. There's just
I
one
know.
ball.
I'm with you. I mean, that's the argument I would make against him as well. Just strictly the fact that, like I was saying earlier, he is shooting up draft boards. Like he's being, picked like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's funny that you say that, Landon, because you picked Najee Harris as your RB bust, and CeeDee Lamb is getting that same sort of like respect and kind of thing, and it's like,
But at least we've seen CeeDee Lamb play professional ball.
Yeah,
So that's.
Yes, I agree. You're right. You're right. But it's just I don't know what side I really am on that, but I can see the argument to be made. If he was a bust, I would not be surprised.
I just think in that range of wide receivers, there's better, safer options.
There's got to be.
It's kind of a shoot for the moon pick too, like because the ceiling is really high.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Well, and that's what makes a lot of these boomer bust picks, like you were saying earlier. They have the
Right.
potential, like, hey, you should be putting up 300 fantasy points this year, but you could also put up 100 fantasy points. So it's like you are expected to be putting up points, whether you do it or not. That is going to determine if you're a boom or a bust.
Yeah.
Some of these guys, you don't expect them to do much. You go, hey, if you can go out there and catch 3 balls like a tight end, you give me 3 receptions and
Right.
50 yards, I'm happy. I'm not expecting a touchdown. But these higher ranked guys, you do expect them to do something. So, all right, good pick. That's a bust. We have CeeDee Lamb on boom and bust. Up Jay Stevens, who's busting for you?
A busting for me is Mike Evans. The reason I say Mike Evans is because kind of a similar situation to what Cam was talking about with the Cowboys. A lot of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay. I mean, they got Godwin, who some people might forget, but was the number 2 fantasy wide receiver 2 years ago with Jameis Winston as their quarterback. This will be Godwin's first year, healthy year with Tom Brady. And when Mike Evans last year was doing anything remotely good, it was like he was putting up games where he'd have like 2 catches for 2 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, is that really what you want to count on? Like, Mike Evans isn't their possession receiver.
Well, and Brady's at that point in his career, too, that he's not launching 50, 70-yard bombs.
Right,
You know, he's he's making the smart pass, and that's going to include, getting it to all the receivers. So Brady's a good, experienced quarterback. He's making the smart play. He's not just airing it out to the fastest, best guy. So that's the problem with the Bucs receivers. You do have a lot of firepower. They're all great players, but sometimes it works against them. So Jay Stevens says it's going to be a bust. Mike Evans.
What do you think?
I almost picked Mike Evans for the exact same reason like we're talking about. Evans is on like some crazy streak of 1,000-yard seasons. Maybe every single one of his career. He's gotten over 1,000 yards. I think that ends this year.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, next up, we got our boy Frosty, who is not going to make your team this year, bro.
Got to be Will Fuller. Down there in Houston.
Will Fuller, don't disrespect the only good Texan. Come on.
Will
He's
Fuller.
the only good Texan player. Throw him a bone.
No, what do you mean? He's not even a Texan player. He's in
Oh,
Miami.
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Oh.
He's going to suck nonetheless.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
Either way, he's gonna suck. He's always been that. He's got some highs, but his lows are just.
He's
too
also
inconsistent.
a boom. He's like a broke man's Tyler Lockett, dude.
Right.
That dude's he's fast. He can, but like
He can fill in the blank if you need him to
Sure.
fill in the blank, but
Right.
you don't
He's
ever
not your
want him to fill
consistent
in.
guy.
No.
yeah. I mean, you're not. He's not going to be a guy that you're confident in rolling out in your lineup week in and week out.
He
There was
kinda-
talk last year when the Packers were looking for like depth at wide receiver. They're like, oh, they should trade for Will Fuller. And I was like, absolutely not. No, we should not give up anything to bring in Will Fuller for the remainder of the season. Just
We
so he
have
can
Valdez
bounce.
Scantling, man.
I mean, okay.
We have Valdez
Yeah,
Scantling.
dude, that dude's got frying pan hands for sure. But that's another issue
Yeah,
altogether.
yeah.
Fuller is not someone you should really invest a lot of stock in. I agree with that.
If any.
Great hair, though.
Great hair.
Great hair.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing bust, right? Yeah, my bust wide receiver
Bust.
of the season is going to be A.J. Brown, okay? Some people might not like to hear that, but here's my thinking on it, all right? I don't think that A.J. Brown's going to do terrible this season, but just like you were talking about earlier, there's Julio Jones in the house now. That's another big mouth to feed. Now, it's one of those things that I don't know who's going to be the number one now, A.J. Brown or Julio. Julio has always been a big star. He's always been a top 3 fantasy player. How does that mix with Ryan Tannehill? We don't know. If he does catch some fire, you got to assume Julio's taken over at least 700 to 1,000 yards away from somebody.
Absolutely.
Julio's a beast. He's going to be
gonna get
grabbing
his.
some touches.
It's Julio.
You got Derrick Henry, like you said. If the Titans can get up big in games with all this firepower, they might just have to run it down. So you do have the potential of wide receivers on some of these bigger teams. You might not even get a lot of action in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, man down.
Man down.
I agree. I agree with you there. Holy shit!
And I'm thinking too, it's like where he's getting drafted. He's getting drafted as like a top 10 wide receiver. So, like you were saying earlier,
He's going high.
I just don't think the position he's getting drafted at is gonna produce what you're expecting. So you're drafting as a top 10, you're expecting top 10. I'm seeing him finishing somewhere in the 30s, range.
Yeah, and that. With that being said, so last year we had talked about this a bit earlier, but last year it was Calvin Ridley and Julio right in Atlanta, and when Julio played, Ridley's numbers suffered significantly.
Exactly.
And when Julio was out, I think Calvin Ridley was like a wide receiver 3. So just that alone can give you some sort of indication on what could possibly happen with A.J. Brown. But hold on, that being said, Julio, I don't think Julio's healthy anymore, dude.
No,
Like,
he's not
he-
healthy,
he-
but
dude,
he's
he-
out there. They're paying him to be out there and to be
they're,
Julio
they're
Jones.
always paying him to be out there and be Julio Jones, but
I
he's
think at
never
this-
out there.
I think
man.
at this point in Julio's career, if
Yeah.
you can get double-digit games from him, that's a successful season.
I think so too, but I mean, that's, there's 17 games now.
yeah, it's a huge question
But
mark. for
even
sure.
if he
16
plays half
games,
of them, let's
17
say he
weeks.
plays half of them, and I mean, he eats up, 50, 70 yards a game, he's going to eat something. That's
He
all
is.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
If you had the old Titans team where your number 2 was Corey Davis, and it was a very clear, distinguishing, hey, you're the number 1, you're the number 2. Now I just feel like, all right, you're number 1A, you're number 1B, and then we got this guy called Derrick Henry. So, all right, our last bus pick for wide receiver, Landon, who you got?
I had some fun with this one. If you're wearing a Texans uniform, I'm not putting you on my football team. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone, but Houston is just a bad football team. There's no names in that locker room that really make you sit down and like, ooh, that person's gonna flame. There's just no confidence in anyone in that locker room.
Oh,
That's
so
Brandon Cooks with Deshaun Watson, okay, but he's gonna have Tyrod Taylor as his quarterback this year. He's not gonna get 100 targets again.
So you're roasting the entire Texans
That
offense.
entire team.
Okay, it's not a player, it's a whole
not-
organization.
The whole organization right now is a dumpster fire, and I'm sorry. Just stay away.
Yeah.
Only if you have marshmallows and you're looking to roast them, step right up to the Houston Texans
S'mores
offense.
for everybody in Texas.
Yeah, we love s'mores in Texas, boy. We love them.
Yeah.
They are tasty.
All right, so let us know what you think down in the comments. Who's your boom and bust wide receiver? And catch our next segment where we talk about tight ends.
Yep.